What up, man? Thank you, Christian, for coming on the High Vibration Hustle podcast. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great. I am very excited about this Monday. I woke up relatively early and I've already gotten like three things done that I wanted to do that I thought was going to take me forever.
Whole three, bro?
A whole three. Yeah, you're number 4, which I'm feeling quite productive.
Thank you. I feel so special. I'm number 4 on Christian's list today. Oh. That's awesome, man. Let's see what number you are. I just did a client call. I did another call, 2, 3. Oh, you are number 4 as well today.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. What a coincidence. What a coincidence.
Universe doesn't lie.
Oh,
how was your weekend, man? What did you do, man? What's the big things you're working on right now, dude? What are you really excited about?
Okay, so I'm working on a ton of stuff. I'm working on a book, and I'm that's probably the slowest thing that I'm doing. And yesterday I was talking with a friend who's also writing a book herself. This is a good friend of mine. She lives in Madrid, and I visited her one day, and then she tells me like her life story, which is crazy. Like if you hear her life story, you're gonna want to see a movie about that, or a book. So I told her, you need to write a book about this, and I kind of like thought about it and just said it to her, but she took it very seriously. And it's gonna be a great book. Like I'm totally gonna buy it, and I'm gonna recommend it to everybody.
I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, man, you should.
I will.
And so I told her about mine, and that I was like a little bit slow on the writing, and she said, no, I think I said, let's meet every week and make sure that we keep each other accountable. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. So now every Sunday we're going to be meeting for a little bit just to make sure that we're... my goal this week is just to write a certain amount of pages, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll exchange opinions, etc. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I'm working on. Then I'm working on publishing a bunch of scientific papers on COVID. And that is probably my main work right now. As you know, I work here in New York. I was in the middle of when things were like pretty bad. The whole hospital was changing to like a big ICU unit. A ton of people were dying, etc. It was bad. And now it's not, at least not in the hospital I'm working. And what I'm doing is just gathering all that patient data and making sense of it, like trying to figure out what really, specifically on cancer patients, trying to figure out what are the main risk factors in terms of epidemiological variables. Like obesity, we know like it's one of them, like hypertension, maybe things like that. Like just run the data in that, like analyzing, relating it to cancer type and other things like lab values. And then I'm going to focus specifically on the neurological manifestations of COVID, which, if it's pretty bad, what will happen is that you will like not know where you are. You will not know who you are, maybe. You don't know like the time. You don't know who are the people around you. Then you're going to maybe you get a little bit paranoid, or you start hallucinating. Like it could be hallucinations or on the paranoia side, and you feel like everybody's like experimenting on you, and you're after all in the hospital, and you're going to freak out a little bit. Or the other side of thing would be...
So how long do you have to have it before, and how progressed, how far does it have to go before that happens?
Yeah, so it depends, right? Like the majority of the people don't really have any symptoms. And then if you do have symptoms, there's a significant minority of the people that have symptoms that are bad enough that require you to go to the hospital. And from those people that end up in the hospital, a minority of them have these symptoms, which are like the most severe of the most severe. I mean, it basically... delirium is this condition.
Yeah.
And just delirium is basically a temporary brain failure, just like your kidneys.
So is it permanent? It's not permanent then?
It's not permanent. Wow. As long as you overcome the infection and you get better, this condition should get better too. And most patients, it did. And most patient, it does. I mean, if you're very, very old, it may have some like lasting issues that you may see that there's not a full recovery, but other than that, in general.
Oh, okay. I'll throw a thing at you that I did hear recently that I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Way back in the day, I did listen to a whole 2-hour episode of Joe Rogan about it. So I know what exomes are. Right? There
you go.
I heard a doctor over the weekends on the Brad Lea show say that if he got COVID, the first thing he would do would be take exomes. Could you expound on that to the people a bit?
Take exomes?
Yeah, exosomes. It's a certain type of stem cell, then, I believe, that, I don't know, something about the way that type of stem cell does its job. I found to be very interesting. And I wish there was a clinic I could go to and just like, and I know there are, but I mean, I wish it was more easily accessible and widespread that I could just go get some stem cells.
Let me just make sure that
doctor.
Yeah. Let me just make sure that what I'm going to be talking about is actually true. And I'm not like, so.
Well, I mean, I know, right? I mean, that's just what he said. I mean, So this is the thing. I'm going to answer this question in an indirect way. I'm actually inviting an infectious diseases doctor at Mayo Clinic to my podcast, I think next week. And I'm going to ask him about coronavirus. That's going to be one of the main things that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to ask him this question because specifically exosomes, like I don't know how they're used in treatment. It sounds like an experimental way to treat the infection. For sure.
And I just don't know enough to tell you that's the way to go. Like I would be just like,
no worries, man. I would have to see if you'd be interested in it. If we could get my stepdad on here for you for your podcast. Look up John Lednicki real quick. So and see if maybe he's somebody you'd be interested in having on. He's a molecular virologist. And
that sounds cool.
Yeah. So.
You've told me about him.
Yeah. So you guys would have a great old conversation, I'm sure, if it's something you'd be just on New York Times and bunch of stuff. So I'm going to try to have him on. I got to have him on my podcast too. You know what I mean? So like, I'll see if I can set it up for it. He's a busy, this guy does not sleep, bro. Like you want to talk about somebody that, you know how hard, you guys work in the medical field, the bacteria and the viruses don't just stop growing because you need to sleep.
Right.
So anyway, man.
So that's another thing I'm working on. Another thing that I'd love to meet.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And I'd love to interview in my podcast. That'd be fun.
He's a super interesting guy, dude. Like he's from the Philippines, bro. Like he'll tell you all kinds of crazy fucking stories and shit.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear about it. That's what I like about people. Like that, when you find yourself meeting all these like super successful people, they're a lot of fun. They've had interesting lives. I don't think that you can be extremely successful at something without being extremely interesting as well.
Yeah, all the best people are crazy.
Yeah.
We're all fucking crazy.
We all are. Well, like, and also to quote Krishnamurti, like, it is not a measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, right?
I love that one.
Yeah, and I think that if you're like working so hard, you're probably not that well adjusted. So I don't know. So maybe that means that we're less crazy, or maybe I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying.
He's like, look, man, I didn't go to philosophy school, all right? Bro, I'll tell you. I totally weirded out my philosophy teacher when I was, taking philosophy at college, dude. Because I totally told her that same story I told you on your last podcast about when I took the 20. Yeah. How essentially, like, I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I've experienced solipsism. Like, you don't get it. Like, like I'm like walking with him in the hallway, like after class, and he's like, good. Like he's got to be thinking like this weirdo. Like,
should I call the hospital and send him there?
Like Descartes, right? Dualism, non-dualism. I mean, Oh man, I got, super deep into like, the quantum, the quanta, the formless quanta that is the universe, right? And just, I mean, I was this close to becoming a witch doctor, man. We'll just put it that way. And I mean, dude, what is your take on all of that? I mean, do essential oils work? I mean, what about the Reiki? I'm sure are you aware of the Reiki?
I'm aware of the Reiki. Yeah, I know.
Tell us about the Reiki, doctor.
So, I mean, if I talk with you in terms of like evidence, right? Evidence-based treatments, then there's nothing I can tell you about Reiki that is going to be useful to you. Like there's just not. Like
I know.
And then
you're a real doctor,
right? And then from the other side of things, you do have this long-lasting tradition in traditional Chinese medicine, in Ayurveda, in India, that talk about these meridians and talk about, like, if you go to China, they call them meridians. If you go to India, they call them nadis, that are supposed to be all these like kind of like vessels, kind of like the blood vessels of the chakras being part of that, like where energy crosses from one place to another. And this is more like blood flowing, but it's not blood, it's more like energy, like and this type of and this type of energy you can direct with concentration and willpower. Now, Western medicine, academic medicine, we don't deal with that, okay? Because we haven't been able, in order to be accepted as science, you need to be measured. Whatever it is, the hypothesis that you're creating, you need to measure it with a tool. And that tool can't be your mind. It has to be a reproducible tool. It has to be a tool that can be done by two different individuals. And we just haven't been able to measure chi, and not to say it doesn't exist. Like I'm not here to say all of that is a lie. I'm just saying we just haven't been able to measure it, and that's why I can't speak from the standpoint of Western medicine. And yet at the same time, it's such an interesting philosophy, right? And then from these meridians and this like consciously and willpower directed movement of energy come different treatments. One of them being acupuncture. So you put these like little needles in these different parts of the body, which are made to like block or enhance these meridians so that the energy passes in a specific way. And you can, like, I guess that the way that they consider disease is something like too much energy or too little energy flowing through different parts of your body, causing different types of diseases. So from that standpoint, they kind of like bring you back to a normal circular flow of energy throughout your body, and that's going to make you feel better. And I think Reiki is kind of the same, but more subtle, in the sense that somebody comes with your hands and just like puts their energy and kind of like, or maybe redirects your energy. I don't know. I'm not quite sure about how that works, but it like harmonizes the flow, and through that harmonization, then you balance yourself out, and you fix whatever emotional or physical conditions you were going through. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether it works or not, because I just don't know. That I know about it, but I just don't. I just can't speak from the word of science. But I find it really, really interesting.
I'll have to give you my my one scientific experience with Reiki that involved two people and two people's tools and not their minds. And I'll say that story off air, dude. That's a crazy one. We'll come back to that, but do ask me about it. It's a good one. Okay. Because right, you hear these stories, right, where somebody got the thing removed or the tumor was gone. I don't know. You hear all kinds of crap, but people are full of shit. That's for sure. People are full of shit.
But there's also placebo, right? Like that is something that you can absolutely track in your trials. This is something that you track in the trials. In fact, when you want to prove that a medicine works to fix certain diseases or to cure certain diseases, you compare it against placebo.
Right.
And but what does that mean? That means that the drug has to do better to a certain percentage quantity than placebo. But what does that mean? That means that there's a certain amount of people in the control group that are getting no medication are getting cured, and we just don't know why. So nobody really understands what placebo is, and there's a bunch of people trying to figure that out because it's a pretty impressive and remarkable thing to get cured for like all conditions through the placebo effect. So that just speaks to us about how much we don't know in medicine. We
That's super weird.
We talk as if we knew it all. We don't, man. We don't.
Dog, listen, man. I know. You're all liars, and you all just write scientific papers to get published, to get views. Yeah. No, I don't know, man. I mean, it is bizarre how much we don't know, and then how much we pretend that we do. Yeah. The level of confidence we walk around with, or whatnot. I mean, it's all a very, very interesting, thing. I think, man, and this will never happen, but if humans could agree on a list of priorities, it'd make society a lot easier, simple things like, kids are supposed to get a certain amount of sleep and probably aren't supposed to be woken up at 6 a.m. to go sit in a desk with fake lights and not get to move, just
right for 8 hours.
Yeah, like if we could just, and there's the list of examples of things like that just goes on and on. But I mean, it really does seem like, and I love your input on this. Like, it really does seem like we're accumulating what we think is good scientific knowledge. Like, we have a lot of evidence for such things like that. The thing, let me be clear. The things that we do have evidence for, we have a lot of stuff for evidence about good health, and we do absolutely nothing with it. Like, kids' recess, the amount of recess kids get has decreased over time, yet the amount of research we have about how good that is for them has increased. So, that's how, I don't know.
Yeah, and what comes to mind when you say that is also food, right? And the type of food that kids should be eating in their schools. And there's some places where that is very well, like where scientific evidence is very well used. I mean, you go to France specifically, I mean, you eat very well. You eat very well in the public school that you don't pay for. They really feed you like a king. You make this food from like all organic materials. I think it's like even a class that you go through where you cook your own lunch with your students, so that not only do you eat well every day, but you know how to eat well outside school. And that's pretty good. Like here, I guess, I don't know. I didn't come to school in the US.
Dude, it's terrible. I'm
assuming they give you Whoppers and stuff.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's just like pure sugar for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
So,
and like capitalism is a great thing, but sometimes it gets messy. It gets messy, and some people's interest like overcome the well-being of the kids.
Yeah.
So Coca-Cola will be able to like put like a soda dispenser like right next to the school. Yeah. Like maybe that shouldn't happen.
Well, yeah, and I mean I've heard that even the food pyramid itself is just like ass backwards. Like you should just not be eating that much like carbs. Like the ratios are all. But not only that, I mean, you as well as I know, your genetics and your biome are actually going to be what even it's going to be vary from person to person. There is no one thing fits all, and that's because of our genetics. Am I wrong about that?
Well, yeah, that's true. I think that medicine in general, every person's different, and every person has their own proclivities in terms of how they deal with external influences. So you can have one person that smokes a ton of cigarettes and lives until they're 120-year-old. Other people will smoke maybe like a couple months and get lung cancer. Like both types of outlier exists, but there are some general general rules that apply for pretty much everybody. Like, and just we can get as general as, yeah, you should sleep like at least 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
You should like exercise every day. You should have like I don't know, like meaningful relationships in your life. You should, and all these things will likely, you should be like at the sun, or at least get vitamin D supplementation, and those kinds of things are pretty generalizable. But you're right, some people will need one thing more than another, and that's where I think the future of medicine is going, which is individualized medicine. And I think we'll get there, but medicine is a field that advances slow because we want to be careful about what we research, and the way that we research is not necessarily efficient, you know.
No.
And it's guided by so many like specific vested interests that it's hard to research to do research in some things, and then it's very easy to do research in others, right? Like, for example, the psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, which is one of the things that I'm interested in researching. The most, not all of them, now it's changing a little bit, but initially at least, all these psychedelic drugs that were supposed to be researched were generic, so there's no necessarily a significant interest in pharma. So a lot of the money in order to do this very, very expensive research was done by donations and philanthropy. And even now, like MAPS is trying to finish their phase 3 MDMA study for PTSD. They're needing they're trying to get like $30 to $60 million to get that, and all of that from philanthropy, so that they can actually do this stuff. And there, if it's a drug that is not going to be a generic, then there's going to be pharma vested interest, and then there's going to be a lot of money in there. So it's changing a little bit, but at least in the psychedelics realm. But you know, it's hard to. So then, if you want to know whether eating like eggplant at lunch is a good idea or not, like, who's going to pay for that research, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. And so that's the thing. Like, even the direction of the things that are researched on, not always, but to some extent at least, is influenced by money.
Well, I mean, you know, you just all you got to do is look at politics to see, you know, how far money will get you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Right.
Man, this is a good one, man. This is fascinating. I like this.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, you asked me what else am I working on. I'm also working on my podcast.
Yes. Yeah, I see you've got quite a few episodes up now. Yeah,
I'm doing one per week.
Awesome.
And your episode was amazing. So if
thank
you guys are listening to this right now, you should go see Phil's episode, and you'll get all of your emotions triggered. You're gonna feel great. You're gonna feel sad. You're gonna feel angry. You're gonna feel like all of the things. So don't binge on Netflix. Go watch Thrive's episode on Phil. It's a good one.
Yes.
And so I just, there's a new episode just came out yesterday. A friend of mine, his name's Juan, and it's a really cool story too. You know, this guy, he was my friend from high school, like since we were like little kids doing like stupid things, like age 14, being mischievous little brats back in Ecuador.
Wow.
Nobody knew who we were. Nobody would have bet that would have made a life for ourselves. And then suddenly this guy becomes the number one copywriter in the world. He now, in the world, planet Earth, man. And
what's his name?
Juan Javier Peña. Yeah, you can see him in my Instagram stories right now. I just like started posting on it. So he's basically, have you seen Mad Men?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's basically the real life father of Donald Draper. You know, like this guy is actually the shit in advertisement. He like did a bunch of ads for Burger King, Budweiser, Heinz. He did a bunch of Super Bowl spots. Like you've probably seen some of his commercials. Like some of the stuff he does has been like talked upon in the middle of like the U.S. Congress. Like when net neutrality, like there was a fight on net neutrality. He did an ad on net neutrality, and then Congress like use his ad to like understand it, like and explain it to people.
I'm gonna have to go listen to that episode. That sounds like a good one, man.
Yeah, man, it's really good, and he always pushes forward. So he started in Ecuador, and he was just really good at. He very creative guy, and he created a lot of like fun projects at his school. He won a scholarship to go to Argentina and work in an ad company that had like good influence on like big companies there. He created ads for them, started winning a lot of awards. And then to the point where they say, hey, you're like pretty good. So let's move you to like the Miami branch of our agency. And then over there, he just destroyed the freaking world of advertisement. Like,
and then the CIA hired him to make ad copy for the aliens so we can market properly to the outer space and get them to go. Man, it has been so exciting having you on, dude. Like every time you come on, bro, like we just get going and it is just the most fun time. So I'm so excited to do the next one with you, man.
Yeah. Anytime.
Where can the people find you and where can they find your podcast?
Yes. So podcast, you can find it in all the platforms, I guess that except for LinkedIn. That you can't find me on. Not yet, at least. But in the name's Thrive, the Christian Bjerre Show. And you can find me on Instagram. It's kind of, I'm Christian's friends.
We'll make sure you get linked up, bud. Hey, man, thanks again for coming on. Let's get another one booked up, man. And I can't wait to see you again, dog.
See ya.
All right, man. Peace.
Bye.